Hey there, deep divers. Ready for a deep dive into a world you might not expect? Indian plumbing.
Plumbing.
Yeah. Plumbing, you might think plumbing. Really? But trust me, it's way more exciting than it sounds. We're talking global trends, supply chains, sustainability, and yeah, even those stylish bathroom designs you see everywhere these days.
Yeah, it's true. Plumbing can actually tell you a lot about what's happening in the economy and what consumers really want. It's like a little model of bigger trends.
Exactly. And the company we're going to focus on today, Prince Pipes and Fittings Limited, or PPFL, is right in the thick of it. They're a big name in Indian plumbing, and we're going to break down their latest quarterly report, their Q3 FY25 financials.
Ooh,
We're
exciting.
going to see what their numbers tell us about their strategy, the challenges they're facing, and basically what it all means for the future of plumbing in India.
I'm really interested to see how they're dealing with the current economic climate, especially with all the craziness going on in the world. It's got to be tough.
For sure. And to help us make sense of it all, we've got a great set of sources. We've got PPFL's official press release about their results.
Got it.
We have their detailed investor presentation, which really digs deep into their performance and their plans for the future. And we also have their unaudited financial statements. The raw numbers, gotta love
Yeah,
those.
lots to unpack.
Okay, so let's jump right into that press release. They start with their revenue, which was 578 crores
Hmm,
for Q3 FY25. But that's actually a 7% drop compared to last year. Ouch.
not great.
And their EBITDA, that's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
Right.
It took a big hit, too. It was only 3 crores, a huge drop from the Euro 76 crores they earned in the same quarter last year.
That's a big difference compared to what we see in their 9-month figures, right?
Yeah.
Which actually show a 4% growth year over year in the amount of finished goods they made. So something doesn't quite add up there.
Yeah, for sure. So both the press release and the investor presentation talk about a weak demand environment, which seems to suggest it's not just PPFL struggling. The whole industry's feeling it. Makes you wonder about the bigger economic situation in India, right?
Definitely. I mean, India is dealing with inflation like a lot of economies. There are concerns about a potential recession, and people are definitely being more careful with how they spend their money. And those big picture trends will absolutely trickle down to industries like plumbing.
Makes sense. Then there's this interesting tidbit. Low PVC prices actually hurt PPFL's sales, which seems a little counterintuitive, right?
How so?
The investor presentation explains that because the prices are so low, dealers aren't keeping as much inventory, and that impacts how much PPFL can sell. Kind of a domino effect.
Wow, yeah. It shows how messed up things can get with global supply chains. And when prices for basic materials like PVC drop, it
Ah.
could throw everyone off. The companies making the pipes, the stores selling them, everybody.
Now let's take a look at the financial statements. One thing that jumps out is a 5% year-over-year increase in raw material costs. Not good at all. That's
Yeah.
definitely going to eat into their profits. What do you make of that?
It's not a great sign, especially combined with the weak demand. They're getting squeezed from both sides, basically. Lower sales and higher costs. But there's one interesting thing here. Their employee benefit expenses went up 22% year over year.
Oh, interesting.
Could they be investing in their workforce, maybe more training or hiring new people, even with the economy being uncertain?
That's a great point. It could be a sign that they're really committed to their employees,
Mhm.
trying to build a stronger, more resilient company for the future. And you know what? This is a reminder for all of us listening that, hey, this financial stuff, it's not just about some company's numbers.
Right.
It can directly impact what we pay for things like plumbing fixtures. It's a good reminder that even something as basic as plumbing is connected to what's happening in the global economy.
Totally. But it's not all doom and gloom. Let's shift gears and talk about their long-term strategy because even with these challenges, they're making some interesting moves.
Yeah, got to look at the bigger picture. And the investor presentation gives us a good peek into PPFL's vision for the future. One thing that's clear is that they're not just sticking with pipes and fittings, they're expanding, adding more products.
Diversifying, as they say.
Exactly. They're getting into things like bathware and something they're calling, get this, modern plumbing solution.
me.
I know. They even bought a whole brand called Akel and launched Akel by Prince.
Ooh la la.
Right. And it all makes sense if you think about it. More and more people are wanting stylish, modern, high quality stuff in their bathrooms. It's not just about having a toilet anymore. It's about having a bathroom that's like a whole experience.
Yeah, I get that.
So to support all this, PPFL is building a brand new manufacturing facility in Begusarai, Bihar, which tells us they're not afraid to spend money, even with all the uncertainty in the world. And it's strategic. They're targeting growth in East India, a region with huge potential.
Smart. East India is seeing a lot of growth, more people moving to cities, incomes are rising. It's a good place to be for a company like PPFL. Seems like they're getting ready to ride that wave.
And they're not just focusing on factories. They've launched a new loyalty program called Udan 2.0, specifically for plumbers.
Okay,
It's a really smart way to build relationships with the people actually installing their products, the real influencers.
for sure. Plumbers are the ones recommending things to their customers, so keeping them happy and loyal is a good move.
So, looking at all of this, you think they're setting themselves up for success in the long run, even with the current hiccups?
Seems like they're making some pretty smart choices. Expanding into bathware lets them tap into a market that's really booming right now.
Right.
And their focus on East India is strategic, for sure. It's all about positioning themselves for the future.
It's really fascinating to see, but it's not all about making money, right? PPFL is also making a big deal about sustainability, something we're seeing more companies do these days.
Oh. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sustainability isn't a choice anymore. It's something everyone has to think about. Customers want it, investors want it, and even governments are starting to require it.
And PPFL seems to be really serious about it. They talk about using more green energy. They're aiming for 20% of their total energy to come from renewable sources in FY25. They've already cut their carbon emissions by a lot, like 32.29% since FY17. They've even planted over 742,000 trees over the last 10 years.
That's great. It's a really positive sign. Shows they understand that customers care about the environment and are more likely to choose brands that are trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's not just about looking good. It's about actually taking action. Now, let's dig a little deeper into this whole Equelle by Prince bathware thing. Why are they getting into this, and how's it been working out so far?
Well, as we've been saying, the Indian bathware market is on fire right now, and PPFL wants a piece of the action. It's a way for them to, not put all their eggs in one basket and rely less on just pipes and fittings, which can be pretty unpredictable.
Makes sense. And the investor presentation goes into a lot of detail about their progress. They're opening new showrooms all over the place. Goa, Jaipur, Pune. They're spreading out across North, West, and South India. And get this, they're specifically targeting Tier 2 and 3 cities, which are those smaller, faster-growing cities with tons of potential customers.
That's really smart. Those tier 2 and 3 cities are where a lot of the growth is happening. People there have rising incomes, they want nice things. Any brand that wants to win in India needs to be in those places.
But is it actually working?
Yeah.
Is branching out from pipes and fittings really the right move?
It's a little early to say for sure, but there are some good signs. They're building stores, getting their name out there, and focusing on consumers who are looking for, aspirational products. Whether it'll be a winner in the long run, we'll have to wait and see, but it's a bold move and calculated, which I like.
And people are noticing. They've been getting some awards and recognition lately.
Yeah, awards can tell you a lot about how a company's doing.
For example, they got this Great Place to Work certification.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's a big deal. It shows they're focused on creating a positive work environment for their employees. And that's something a lot of people care about these days.
Definitely. Nowadays, people think about more than just the product itself. They care about what a company stands for,
Right.
how they treat their workers, things like that.
It's bigger than just selling nice faucets. It's about being a good company.
Exactly. And that connects back to their sustainability efforts, right? It's all part of their story.
Right. And they're not just talking about it. They're doing things. Like with green energy, reducing their emissions, planting trees.
Yeah, taking action speaks louder than words, right? That's how you win over skeptical customers, by actually doing something, not just saying you will.
Now, let's not forget about the money stuff. The investor presentation lays out some pretty ambitious goals. They want to be more profitable, get more bang for their buck on their investments, and basically achieve sustainable growth.
And they're not just throwing out fancy words, they've got actual plans. They're talking about improving their manufacturing, expanding their network, and coming up with innovative, high-value products.
They're also really obsessed with being efficient, which is super important in a market where margins are always getting squeezed.
They even highlighted their work on something called their working capital cycle, which basically measures how fast they can turn their investments into actual cash. They've been able to make that cycle a lot shorter.
Okay, but what does this shorter working capital cycle actually mean for them? In real terms, I mean.
Well, it means they're managing their money well. They can turn profits into cash faster and put that back into the business, which gives them more flexibility to do all those things they're talking about, like growing and dealing with economic ups and downs. It's a good sign.
Sounds like they're trying to cover all their bases. Being smart with their money, expanding, being sustainable, building a strong brand.
Yeah, they're playing the long game, that's for sure. Setting themselves up for the future, even if things are a little shaky right now.
But let's be real, there are always risks. The investor presentation talks about things like raw material prices being unpredictable,
Sure.
changes in demand, what if people suddenly stop buying bathware, and government policies, which can change on a dime.
Yeah, those are all important things to keep in mind. If you're interested in PPFL, whether you're thinking about investing or just buying their products, you have to understand both the good and the bad.
The press release also had some interesting tidbits about their manufacturing. They're always innovating, trying new technologies, and fine-tuning their processes to be more efficient and cut costs.
Makes sense. Being efficient is key in a tough industry like this. It's how they stay profitable, even when things like material costs keep going up.
And remember, they're not just churning out pipes anymore. Their bathware line needs a whole different set of skills and expertise, and they're investing in that.
That's cool. It shows they're not just sitting back and relaxing, they're actively changing and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay, so we've talked about their money stuff, their strategy, sustainability, and even their manufacturing. But what about the people running the show? The investor presentation gives us a little peek at their leadership team, which seems like a mix of old hands and new blood.
Interesting.
The Cheda family, who started the company, are still very involved. They've got decades of experience. They know the industry inside and out.
Makes sense.
But they've also brought in some new people from outside with backgrounds in finance, investment, and strategy, which adds a lot of valuable expertise and oversight.
A good mix, it sounds like. Having that balance of experience and fresh thinking is often a good recipe for success.
One thing that really stood out to me was how much they talked about engaging with their customers. It's not just about making a sale, it's about building relationships.
Oh, yeah, that's so important these days. There's so much competition out there. It's hard to get people to be loyal to your brand. Companies that make that extra effort to connect with their customers on a personal level, those are the ones that win.
And PPFL's doing it in a bunch of ways. They've got those loyalty programs for plumbers, they're on social media, they're even doing events and workshops to teach people about their products.
They're building a community, which is smart. That can really pay off in the long run, building loyalty and getting people to recommend your stuff.
And that UDAN 2.0 program for plumbers, it's not just about giving them rewards for buying stuff. It's about helping them get better at their jobs, giving them training and resources.
Brilliant. It helps PPFL and it helps the plumbers. They get closer to those key influencers and they actually help those plumbers grow their businesses.
It's like they're creating a network where everyone benefits.
Exactly. And it all comes back to building a good reputation and gaining trust, right?
Right.
They're not just selling things, they're building relationships and investing in the long-term success of their partners.
I'm really impressed with how they're putting it all together, their financials, their strategy, sustainability, being good at what they do, strong leadership, connecting with customers.
Yeah, they're playing a multi-dimensional game and they seem to be good at it. It'll be really interesting to see how they keep adapting as the market changes.
One thing's for sure, they're not afraid to take risks and make bold moves.
Uh-huh.
They're expanding, diversifying, and they're all in on sustainability.
That's what makes them so interesting to watch. It's an attitude that could really pay off for them in the years to come.
So, as we continue our deep dive into PPFL, it's clear that they're a company worth keeping an eye on. They're a perfect example of the dynamism and energy of the Indian market. And they're giving us some really valuable insights into what the future of the plumbing industry might look like.
It just shows that even something as, ordinary as plumbing is tied to those big global trends and what people really want.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that even the most basic things can give you a glimpse into those powerful forces shaping our world. And PPFL is right there, navigating those changes, forging ahead, and aiming for growth.
It's a pretty exciting story. I can't wait to see what happens next.
Me too. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's zoom out for a second. What does PPFL's story tell us about the Indian economy as a whole? What can we learn from how they're approaching growth, innovation, and sustainability?
Those are some big questions. I think we need some more perspectives to really understand that.
You're right. And when we come back, we'll be joined by a special guest who can give us some amazing insights into the Indian market and the plumbing industry. Stay tuned.
We were talking about PPFL getting into the bathware market, but, how are they going to compete? There are already so many companies selling bathware in India. It's a tough market.
That's a good question. And the investor presentation actually talks about how competitive it is. They're going up against some big players, both Indian and international. It's a crowded space.
So how are they going to stand out? What makes iQual by Prince different?
Well, they're really pushing a few things. They're talking about using German technology. They're emphasizing style and design. And they're really hitting hard on the whole high-quality message.
Makes sense. Appeal to those customers who want it all, style and substance.
Exactly. And don't forget that Great Place to Work certification might not seem directly related to bathware, but it does add to their image as a company that cares about its people and makes good products.
Yeah, true. These days, people care about more than just the product, you know? They want to support companies that are doing things right, treating their employees well.
It's not just about selling fancy faucets. It's about being a good company.
For sure. And that all ties back to their sustainability efforts, right? As part of their brand story.
Totally. And they're not just talking about it. They're actually doing things, investing in green energy, reducing their carbon footprint, planting trees.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words, right? That's how you convince people you're serious about sustainability.
Okay, back to the numbers for a minute. The investor presentation outlines some ambitious goals for PPFL, improving their profitability, getting the most out of their investments, achieving sustainable growth. Big stuff.
Sounds like they have big plans. And it's not just talk, they're laying out concrete steps. They want to optimize their manufacturing, expand their distribution network, and introduce new high-value products. It's a solid roadmap.
And they're laser focused on efficiency, which is key when everyone's trying to make every penny count.
Absolutely. They even highlighted their work on shortening their working capital cycle, basically how fast they can turn their investments into cash.
Right, we talked about that before. But isn't there a risk that, focusing too much on efficiency could affect the quality of their products? Like, if they cut corners to save money, that could hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, that's a valid point. It's a tricky balance. You have to be efficient, but you can't compromise on quality. If they can get that right, though, it'll put them in a really strong position financially.
The press release also had some interesting nuggets about their manufacturing operations. They're constantly innovating, experimenting with new technologies, and fine-tuning their processes to make things more efficient and cost-effective. It's impressive.
That kind of focus on operational excellence is really important in this industry. It's how they stay profitable, even when things like material costs go up. They're staying ahead of the game.
And don't forget, they're not just a pipes and fittings company anymore. Their bathware line requires a whole new set of skills and knowledge, and they're investing in that too.
It's fascinating how they're adapting to this new product line. They're not resting on their laurels. They're constantly trying to learn and grow.
We've talked a lot about their financials, their strategy, sustainability, manufacturing. But what about the people at the helm? The investor presentation gives us a little glimpse into their leadership team, and it seems like a good blend of experience and new perspectives.
I like that.
The Cheetah family, the folks who founded the company, are still very involved. They bring decades of experience and a deep understanding of the industry.
Makes sense. They know the business inside and out.
But they've also brought in some outsiders, independent directors with backgrounds in finance, investment, and strategy.
Smart. It's all about having that balance, right? Continuity and fresh thinking. That's a good recipe for any company.
One thing that really stood out to me was their emphasis on customer engagement. They're going beyond transactions and building real relationships.
That's key these days. Consumers have so many choices, it's hard to build loyalty. Companies that connect with their customers on a personal level, those are the ones that will succeed.
And PPFL is doing it in a bunch of ways. They have loyalty programs for plumbers, they're active on social media, they're even holding events and workshops to teach customers about their products. It's a holistic approach.
They're not just selling products, they're building a community around their brand that can pay off big time in the long run.
And remember that Udine 2.0 program we talked about. For plumbers, it's not just about rewards, it's about giving them training and resources to be better at their jobs.
That's so smart. They're not just trying to sell them stuff, they're investing in their success. It's a win-win.
It's like building a network where everyone benefits, everyone grows together.
Exactly. It all comes back to building a strong reputation, earning trust. They're playing the long game, focusing on long-term relationships, not just quick profits.
It's impressive how they're tying all these pieces together, their financial performance, their strategic expansion, sustainability efforts, operational excellence, strong leadership, customer engagement. They're firing on all cylinders.
They're playing a multidimensional game, and they seem to be winning. It'll be interesting to see how they adapt as the market continues to evolve.
One thing's for sure, they're not afraid to take risks, make big bets. They're expanding, diversifying, and fully embracing sustainability.
That's what makes them so compelling. They're not content with the status quo. They want to grow and innovate, and that kind of ambition can lead to incredible things.
So as we delve deeper into PPFL, we're seeing a company that's definitely one to watch. They embody the energy and dynamism of the Indian market, and they're giving us a valuable glimpse into the future of the plumbing industry.
It's a reminder that even something as, every day as plumbing is connected to these global trends, to what people want and need.
It shows us how even the simplest things can give us insights into those bigger forces that are shaping the world. And PPFL is right there, riding that wave, charting a path for future growth.
It's an exciting journey, and I can't wait to see what they do next.
Me too. But before we get too caught up in PPFL's story, let's step back for a moment. What does their journey, their successes and challenges, tell us about the Indian economy as a whole?
That's a great question. And to get a fuller picture, I think we need some more perspectives.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. We're wrapping up our look at Prince Pipes and Fittings Limited, but before we go, we have a special guest joining us to, add another layer to this story.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this. It's always great to hear from someone who's like right in the middle of the Indian market. They can give us that firsthand perspective on everything we've been talking about.
Exactly. So please welcome guest speaker's name and title to the Deep Dive. Guest speaker's name, thanks so much for being here.
It's great to be here. I've been enjoying listening to your conversation.
We're so glad to have you. So you've been involved with the Indian plumbing industry for a while now. From your point of view, what are some of the biggest trends shaping the market right now?
Well, one of the most noticeable trends is the growing demand for premium, high-quality products. Consumers are becoming more and more picky, and they're willing to spend a bit more for products that are durable, functional, and stylish. Especially in bathware, we're seeing a huge increase in demand for modern, luxurious designs.
That lines up with what PPFL's been doing.
Yeah.
They're clearly targeting that segment with their Aquil by Prince brand.
And their push into those Tier 2 and 3 cities makes total sense, given how fast they're growing. Can you tell our listeners a little more about those cities?
Sure. Tier 2 and 3 cities are those smaller but rapidly growing cities outside of the big metro areas. They're becoming real consumer hotspots. Companies that can tap into that are going to do really well.
We've talked a lot about PPFL's sustainability efforts, but how important is sustainability to Indian consumers in general? Is it something that's actually changing how they buy things?
Sustainability is definitely becoming more important in India, although it's still early days compared to some other parts of the world. Consumers, especially younger people, are starting to think more about the environmental impact of what they buy, and they're looking for brands that align with their values.
That's interesting. So PPFL focusing on sustainability could give them a real edge as that trend grows.
PPFL is also making big investments in technology and innovation. How important are those things in the Indian plumbing industry?
Technology is becoming essential. We're seeing advances in manufacturing, materials, even smart technology being integrated into plumbing products. It's changing the game.
That makes sense. Companies that are innovating are the ones that are going to stay ahead. They can offer better products, more efficient, sustainable, user-friendly, all of the things people want these days.
So PPFL's Q3 results were a bit of a mixed bag, some challenges because of the market, but they also showed signs of growth. What's your overall take on the Indian plumbing industry? What do you think the future holds?
I'm optimistic about the long term. India's economy is growing, more people are moving to cities, and government programs like Housing for All are boosting demand. But there will always be bumps in the road, Things like commodity prices and economic cycles, those can cause short-term fluctuations.
That's true. Even in a growing market, companies have to be ready to adapt and adjust.
Well, guest speaker's name, this has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Happy to be here.
So, deep divers, that wraps up our deep dive into the world of Indian plumbing and Prince Pipes and Fittings Limited.
We've explored a company that's embracing innovation, expanding into new areas, putting sustainability first, and figuring out how to thrive in a constantly changing industry.
It's a story that shows us how important it is to be strategic, adaptable, and to always be looking ahead.
And it's a story that's still being written. I'm really curious to see what happens next, both for PPFL and for the Indian plumbing industry as a whole.
Me too. But for now, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and remember that even the most ordinary things can reveal fascinating connections. Until next time, deep divers.